Hello everybody and welcome to the Showcast, a series of candid conversations from the world of film, brought to you by The Film Verdict and hosted by yours truly, Matt Micucci. There are so many technological innovations and developments that have swept up the world of audiovisual storytelling over the past few years, and on this episode of the Showcast, recorded at the 2024 AVP Summit in Reggio Calabria, Italy, we're going to be focusing on one that is becoming increasingly popular and important: digital production studios. And we will be doing so by sitting down for a conversation about them with Morgann Brun, production manager at Planète Rouge, located in Marseilles in the south of France, a company that recently transitioned from a VFX company to a virtual production studio. And if you're unfamiliar with virtual production studios, this is a great starting point for you to understand a little more about them and how they are opening up new avenues for audiovisual storytellers and creators, as well as how they work and the many elements that come together to make it possible. So fire up an Audiotini and listen to the audio waves as they fly through the air. This is the Showcast. Morgann, welcome to the Showcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. We're going to be talking about really interesting, innovative techniques and digital evolutions of this art of ours, audiovisual industry, let's say. And, you know, we're here at Reggio Calabria within the context of the AVP Summit. Now, you were saying this is your the first time around these parts of Italy?
Absolutely. I got invited from the CNC, which is the French Film Commission, to talk about new technology and how we also do it in France. And that was really interesting for me to give my testimony.
That totally. I mean, it's a beautiful place to be, right? The weather has been lovely. The sea is lovely. I've had a wonderful view all day. Like, you know, just that sea. It's such a profound blue color. It's really been great getting lost in it and speaking with wonderful people such as yourself. But Morgann, one of the things that I like to do for these podcasts is, you know, to start off just talking about the topic of the day is kind of boring, dull, and distant and cold. So I just like to find out more about the people I speak with by just asking a very simple question. And the theme has been for the AVP Summit to focus on stories, the art of storytelling. And I wondered whether there was a memory that you had from early life or childhood even, of a moment when you kind of remember awakening to the power of stories. It can be any story too. And maybe it's a memory that in a way influenced your journey that has led you to where you are today.
Sure. Let me think of it. To be honest, I'm quite surprised by the question, but I kind of lack it. This is a bit of a challenge. Storytelling and memory. I think I've always loved to read, and stories was, I was a child that I have two little sisters, but I were always in my head, telling stories to myself. And I studied first theater, and that's where I understood I wanted to tell stories, and to work with people who were telling stories, because I love to listen, but I also really like to tell the stories.
Did you have a visual imagination when you were a kid?
I did. My mother said that I always talk to myself. You know, I was always playing, and I'm still someone really visual, you know, and there's some people have to write stuff to remember them. And when people are telling stories, I'm making my own film, you know, in my head. And it's not everyone that does that, but
Yeah, it's true. It's not everyone, but some people are gifted with that kind of perspective, you know. Just to return to the stories. So what were the stories that would draw you in, the kind of stories that you liked to hear when you were younger? Even now.
Yeah, even now. I like, I think I love challenges. I love mysteries, you know, kind of, Indiana Jones and some out of reality shows. I was always a big fan of Star Wars, which was one of the first movie I saw in the movie theater and fascinated me.
Gotcha.
Don't read a lot of science fiction, but true crime and this kind of stuff are really,
True crime. What about technology? Were you always into technology, like the digital world and stuff like that?
No.
No, not at all.
No. I mean, I'm someone who I think I will qualify myself as curious. So it's not that I was against technology or everything, but I studied film. I studied film and photography and television, but my thesis was about documentary, nothing to do with technology. And I kind of, kind of fell into technology, kind of a mystery. It's just, loved Harry Potter, Star Wars, and this kind of magical world and out of reality world. I ended up at some point being the exhibition director.
Yeah, director of exhibitions.
Director of exhibition of those two exhibitions in the Netherlands. And
curator, I guess, right?
Yeah,
curator.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you would name it a curator. Being the curator of this really peculiar exhibition in the Netherlands, because they're moving around. So it was really a period of time. I was called to become a post-production producer. Yeah. And I never did VFX before, and I kind of learned it, from there. And so the process, and understood the process. And I think I was really curious about it. It was something I never thought I would work with.
Well, of course, it sounds like, even though you stumbled into it in a sense, you obviously had to have some disposition towards it, or at least an understanding of it, or a natural understanding of it, because you seem to be quite good at it, right?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
In the sense that makes it easy. And I think you have to get into technology, you have to be curious. I was never good in mathematics or science or whatsoever. I'm really the literature person, and I think I like challenges. And when it came, it's like, okay, this is something I really don't know. If I can be good at it, if it can be really interesting, let's dive into it. And I think you kind of, when you're into it, it's such a niche. And not a lot of people have this knowledge, which make it really interesting. And I think what I'm doing now as well is I'm learning every day. I'm learning along project. I'm learning with the people I'm teaching, kinda. So it's circling back around. And I think this is a really interesting journey, and that I did not expect to do.
I think what I'm understanding from your approach to these technologies is that you're kind of approaching them with a sense of like, I want to learn, a curiosity, a positive way of looking at these, because some people might not be as positive. They maybe perceive these innovations, these VFX, technological evolution, whatever, as threats, and may not look at them as positively. So sometimes, do you think it's also the way in which we approach these things that kind of, leads to work being done and contributing to what we do?
Yeah, it makes my work easier, because I don't come from VFX and from technology. In the sense that I need to understand technology to explain it. And as I come from more a documentary or more natural way of filmmaking, let's say, that's what I learned. That's why I thought I would make later in life, and I will work with, which I'm obviously not doing now. But I think coming from there, helps me it's not that they're not curious, but are questioning it. And I understand those questions. And that's why, I'm saying I'm learning in the same time as them, because filmmaking, cinema, it's an industry. The film industry is where we work together. We push technologies, we push storytelling, we go further, but there's not many people in the film world since the beginning of the film world who push limits on its own. It's always been together with screenwriters, with production set designers, and it's always together. And I think it's really interesting. It's how you can tackle those issues and those new challenges by talking. And how can I give you a solution? How can we push what we're doing to make it better or more accessible? Because what is better? It's more accessible, and how can we find solutions? Exactly.
But the history of cinema kind of coincides with the history of the evolution of the technology that has been used throughout the years to make movies. So, but now it seems like these times are particularly difficult to keep up with. There's a lot happening culturally, but also technically, technologically, whatever the word is that I'm looking for. And I guess we're going to focus on a particular aspect of it, which is something that I really wasn't all that familiar with, to be honest. Virtual production studios. But before we do, I want to ask you, weighs in to this podcast conversation, actually, which we've been talking about so much. I want to ask you about La Planète Rouge, this company. So can you tell me a little bit about it?
Sure. La Planète Rouge was actually, before getting in virtual production, was a VFX company.
VFX.
It started so we're located in Marseilles, in the south of France. It's starting in 2008. So a while ago, and we did mostly post-production, VFX, editing, color, everything that comes after shooting a movie. And because we're a small company, I think everyone in the company was really interested of tackling challenges and how to tell story differently. And we did a lot of pre-visualization for our project. It was a lot of, we did feature films and also video clips. And there's a couple of video clips that we did in ultra slow motion where we had to make the movie before shooting the movie. And I'm saying that because it's quite relevant with virtual production nowadays, because the process, the pipeline that we're using for virtual production was completely, for us, natural, and we used it before in VFX and post-production. So what we're calling virtual production, I think, started a few years ago, was the Mandalorian series, Disney.
The Mandalorian, yeah.
The Mandalorian.
It's the one I found out after discovering, virtual production studios.
Yeah.
It really,
that's the reference because it's the first, it's
brought
the
it to
first
the fore.
project. Absolutely. And COVID happened as well at the same time as the Mandalorian came out. And I think this technology really flourished at that time because it was a solution for what was happening in real life.
Yeah.
It's like, how can we go somewhere else, but staying where we are because we cannot move?
Yeah, it's true.
And all this technology developed. So what we call virtual production is kind of the same technology than VR and, XR and extended reality, virtual reality. It's all the same technology, actually. And it's using gaming engines. So we're using Unreal, which is the most common engine that are used to create environments that we're going to use in virtual, production. But there's other ones like Unity, etc.
Yeah. So the idea is to build sets, right? To build studios to complement the physical aspect of it is complemented by these screens, right? I'm trying to explain it, and I'm really not doing a good job.
No, but you're right. Maybe I should have started there. Virtual production, it's much more than what we call the volume. The volume works with virtual production. A volume, so has been used in Mandalorian, and that's why La Planète Rouge built in Provence Studio. So after being a VFX and while COVID, we decided to go to build an LED stage, so to do virtual production. So we partnered with Provence Studio. So now we're the technical branch of Provence Studio. Provence Studio is a film studio in the south of France, in Martigues. It's quite close to Marseille. And it's one of the biggest film studio in the south of France, with 22 acres. There's 9 sound stages, 2 backlots, workshops, really everything, so that when you come from somewhere else in the south of France, you come into the studio and you have everything you need to make a movie or of a TV series or whatsoever, to make an audiovisual format, let's say.
Audiovisual content, let's say.
Content.
Because it's adaptable. Well, I think it's admirable too that La Planète Rouge was able to make such a sharp transition. You talked about this being a VFX company before, and now it's essentially kind of reinvented itself as this. So was that a difficult transition to make, or?
It was not for us. It felt natural. We couldn't have made it without Provence Studio. I think this is really important to notice because being in a studio environment is essential for us, for the way we thought of the studio and we build it. Yeah. Because there's a lot of studios in LA, in Europe, are LED studios. The people come from either a grip or lights. Some like us come from VFX, but there's also people coming from there's also a lot of people coming from events. So it's a lot of people coming from different world, getting kind of doing the same thing and what is the production value and how do you make the rules? And, you know, it's kind of last 3 years were really interesting in terms of how do we shape it?
Why is this, the last 3 years has been really the time period during which it has evolved and changed and developed into something that can be useful, right?
Absolutely. I think the first studios were in 2020 to 2020.
Yeah, so it was during like the pandemic.
Absolutely. It really developed at that time. It has really a timeline, really specific timeline. A Mandalorian, I think it's 2019, but I'm not sure. But it started there. And really the COVID happened and the panels also that we're using usually comes from, events and we had to tweak them. Like the company were making LED panels and everything. Yeah. The technology had to be tweaked to be used in film. So it's been a colossal work in between the tech companies and the creators and the people who are producing content as well, or VFX company, and how do we achieve that? Because we all knew the potential of this technology, and now we can, 4 years later, 3 years later, we can look back at it and say, okay, really what we did. We knew it had potential, and now the potential is developing, and we're really helping productions. Yeah, and we're really happy about it. I think.
Well, the benefit that I read about is that it's more environmentally friendly. It's green, right? I mean, it does contribute to that, and that's something that we're becoming increasingly aware when it comes to audiovisual production.
Absolutely, I think that was really important for us. I think we're trying to be as green as possible. This is LED. So, but when we calculate now, the CO2 consumption, we're calculating because there's less traveling and everything. So that's for sure greener. That's optimization, and that contributes to sustainability. But we'll have to look, and I think this is the numbers that we're missing, is how much energy also all those machines are consuming. So I think it's a whole process, and we're all really interested in it. And we as Provence Studio, because we received in Cannes from the Global Production Award, the Sustainable Award.
Oh, there you go.
So we're really into it. And the studio, it's all solar panels. We have bees. We make honey. We have goats.
Love that.
Wow. And I think the project of having a virtual stage was to get also in the, recycle. World. And I think what's also green is not only transporting things, it's recycling, in the sense that the sets that we're designing, we can reuse them. Because you can change a bit the assets, okay, those trees can go there and there and there. And the set can be reused like it would be in real life and outside. This set can be reused as well. So you don't have to use more energy to create new sets, virtual sets. So that's something also sustainable, I think, in terms of cost and in terms of energy spent.
Awesome. Yeah, you're not, this is a very nerd cinephile reference, but you're not burning the sets of King Kong to make a fire scene and Gone with the Wind. That's a good point, actually. You're bringing up a good point. I mean, I loved talking about this because, like I said, this is new. I mean, you talked about this being really coming into being around the pandemic, so that's not long ago, but I can see this having a huge impact in the film world, for sure. And we'll be looking forward to seeing further developments. Thank you very much for joining us, Morgann. Well, one more thing, though, that I've been asking as a closer, because, again, I want to avoid cold closes like, okay, so that's the interview. That's it. We're done. No. One of the things that I've been curious in finding out as far as audiovisual production is concerned is what people are watching. But honestly, honest answers. So I've been asking people, sometimes life as a way of getting us down, we're sad, whether we're sad, we're anxious, we're nervous. We just need something to pick us back up. What many of us do is we watch something, we put something on that we can watch and that will lift our spirits up. And it can be comfort watch, something that I've come to term comfort watch. So what I'd like to ask you is, what is it that you watch in those moments when you're really down in life? What you've been watching these days, but also just maybe it's something that you like to escape into, generally speaking. It can be anything. It can be fiction, non-fiction, sports, anything. Guilty pleasures, non-guilty pleasures.
No, I think I like everything to escape. I like to read. I love movies. I love series. The last movie that I would watch, and rewatch is Poor Thing of, Yorgos Lanthimos.
Wow, really?
Yeah. This was my last, we say it in French, claque, which is, I realized, wow, this is a world that I never expect to see and that I can expect in. And, I love to watch stuff that changes my perspective and changed my life a bit.
That's one of the powers of cinema, of the movies, right? That's really it. Well, Morgann, thank you very much for joining us. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. And let's talk more another time.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation from the Audiovisual Producers Summit of 2024 taking place in Reggio Calabria, Italy. And let me take this opportunity to remind you that there's plenty more great podcast conversations with film industry professionals, audiovisual professionals, and creatives from all over the world that you can discover over at filmverdictnetwork.com. Whether you work in the audiovisual industry or would like to find out more about it. And to make sure you never miss an episode, you can look for us by entering TFV Network and following us wherever you get your podcasts from. Till the next time, from the Film Verdict, this is Matt Micucci signing off. See you soon.